I'm here with James Camali, Alison Thornton, the director and the actor of The Mental State. So I've seen a lot of movies dealing with depression, that sort of thing. What I absolutely love about this movie, and I've experienced this myself, is how hard it is to get help. A lot of people mention that, oh, if you're feeling a certain way, there's help, but is there? If you have the money, yeah, you can find that. But there's even a scene in here where the mom's on the phone, like, no, I don't have insurance, but I got money. Like, I just need help for my kid. And you really show how difficult it can be to get the mental help you need, especially with someone that might be a danger to society and someone that we would want to help in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a huge part of the mental health approach of this film was making sure that was discussed about the person who's going through the mental health crisis themselves, as well as their family who's just trying to help their loved one through the situation, helping them through the lack of resources and education that they have. It's important for all of us to continue to educate ourselves and go out and have these conversations and communications, but it's also not fully realistic to have a mom who's essentially like a working single mother who's trying to care for her son, to also have an encyclopedic knowledge of mental health and mental illnesses. And so it's important to have those resources available for those who need it when they need it most. And that was a really big topic I wanted to discuss in this film. So.
And Alison, your character in this and just your performance is fantastic in this. The way that your character is like, you definitely don't want anything to do with them. But at the same time, it's like, dude, if I say the wrong thing, this guy's going to snap. I don't know what's got what was kind of doing that performance. And also, is that something that you've experienced in real life? Because I know that men that age and all ages can be quite scary sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it came just through conversations with James about how we wanted Bethany to be portrayed. And I think that she definitely has good intentions. She didn't know the extent that Andy was suffering with mental illness, and she just wanted to make sure that he had a friend and was seen. And I still think that even after this movie, it's so important to be a helping hand to people but also to proceed with caution and to know the signs. And I mean, I haven't experienced anything to this extent, but I've definitely always tried to be there for friends who are going through mental health crises. And I think that it's so important to just be able to be there for someone, but also encourage people to seek the help that they need and to try to destigmatize mental illness, because it's something that so many people suffer with. Everyone is brushed by it, whether it's a loved one, a friend, someone in your community. I mean, yeah, I have not experienced anything to this extent, but I've definitely seen people suffering and been at a loss with what I could do to help. And I mean, that's a problem with our mental health system and our resources and our education around it.
And also I watched this movie just before going to bed, which was probably a mistake, but it happens. But as much of a downer as this movie is, I'm guessing that it wasn't all gloom and doom during the shoot. What was the shoot like?
I mean, I had a great time. I had a lot of fun. I mean, everyone was so lovely. The cast was amazing. We're hanging out on the weekends on our days off. We got very close. I'm fortunate that I feel like I walked away from the set with quite a few lifelong friends. And even on set, throughout the really heavy sequences, we were still finding times to laugh and to get ourselves out of it. And that's also a testament to the set environment that James created and making everyone feel so safe with each other.
How do you snap out of that? There's certain scenes that just get really emotionally wrecks you. And you're there on the day, then once James yells cut, how do you just snap out of it? Or do you just need to take a breath and go, oh, that was intense. All right.
I mean, we definitely had to take breaths. There were a lot of hugs. Everyone was really good about leaning on each other. And then also we'd get off work and go get food and laugh and make sure that before we all went to our separate hotel rooms that everybody was okay. And if someone didn't want to be alone, we'd have a movie night. Yeah, I think it was just communication and conversations and music and movies and, forcing yourself out of that state.
And James, the writing credits are yourself, Jeremy Anderson, and Joshua Barclay. What's the writing process like with three different writers on this?
Yeah, so the writing process started with myself and Joshua Barclay, and Josh took the lead on the film for a very long time, and he did a really fantastic job of building the story. And I was kind of there more as knowing that I was going to be directing it, more as kind of a guiding voice, more so as a director than purely as a screenwriter. And then we got to a point where, much like the editing process, we felt like it was good to kind of bring in another person's, because you can work on something for so long, and people who are working with you, if they're reading every draft too, everybody ends up having a very similar perception of what's actually going on the page. And so we brought in Jeremy, who's a fantastic screenwriter, to kind of come in, help us do a little bit of a cleanup and give his thoughts on where he thought things could be punched up, and that sort of work. And ultimately it became the foundation for the film. And, I'm really grateful that it seems like with everybody who's watched the films that the story and the compassion, the empathy behind it has come through. Again, that starts with the writing as the foundational block. So it's a great process with the two of them.
How does writing, knowing that you're going to direct it, differ from, say, you're just writing like a spec script? Maybe you'll direct it, maybe you don't,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely get to put the lens on the page a lot more. I think like quite literally in giving camera directions on the page, as well as, I'm sorry, this is very rude of me and I'm sorry, but my window is open and apparently the world is being constructed outside. So just give me one very quick second. I'm so sorry.
All right. So Alison,
Yeah.
you got any noises
All right,
going outside?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
If it's any consolation, I can't hear it on my end, so I think.
Oh gosh,
fine.
that's even more embarrassing.
I do appreciate you taking the time for that.
Yeah. So as far as writing from a director's standpoint, like I said, I think I can literally just, it allowed me to put the lens on the page quite literally as far as giving camera direction on the page. It makes the communication with the writer easier because I have an understanding of what I'm trying to make play out in a scene, right? So that was a big help.
Yeah. And Alison, you have producer credit for Girl Gone Bad. Most all of your credits are acting, but are there more behind the scenes kind of work you aspire to in the future?
Yeah, I definitely want to get into directing and producing and writing as well. I have a group of producers here. I live in Vancouver, and we're writing a script right now, and we're going to hopefully get that made in 2024, because I think I've always really wanted to move behind the camera and have more, I guess, creative input and make more projects. And yeah, Girl Gone Bad was my first time producing, and it was an amazing experience. I learned so much, and it just made me hungry to do more.
There's so many, like, a wide berth of what a producer is. Like, what was your producing job on Girl Gone Bad? And also, in doing that, has that affected your acting, just the way you approach acting in movies since then?
Yeah, I mean, after working on Girl Gone Bad, I have a much deeper appreciation of the work that goes into pre-production. Producing that was intense because we were filming in the middle of COVID. We had to have all of the COVID incentives going on. And my job as a producer, I got a lot of cast on board. I was in all the auditions and helping people read for it. I was helping with script, and a lot of my job was in post-production as well, with editing, and just also dealing with everyday problems that happen on set. And for the first time, being the person that people go to solve the problems while acting in the project. It was very chaotic, but it was so fun. And I love problem solving. So I had a great time. Yeah, I mean, I know that there's so many facets of producing, and I'm still learning myself, but I definitely want to use that as a vehicle to get more into directing.
And James, you just have credits crawling out your butt. There's so many different jobs that you've had. What's some of your favorite behind the scenes jobs beyond writing and directing?
I don't know. I just love all of it, man. I grew up making silly movies with my friends when we were 10, and starting then, some days I was filming, some days I was editing, and still those are some of my favorite roles on set, either as a camera op or as an editor. I think those two are the ones I gravitate the most towards, but I just love filmmaking. I love every nook and cranny of it, and I love being involved. There's some parts that I'm just not very good at. I don't know if I have the patience for VFX and I'm just not a fantastic colorist, but I still love every aspect of it. But probably editing and camera op outside of, writing, directing, and producing and stuff.
And the colorist, that's the thing I don't quite get. Like I've seen like people do it, but I guess you just mess with it till it looks good, I guess.
Yeah. So, like every camera sensor kind of captures what you're looking at, what it's looking at differently. And you can change a bunch of settings on your camera. But ultimately, you're capturing, in some cases, like a raw image that has a lot of light information and color information in it. And then what happens is once you bring it to the editing process and post-production process, once you have your edit, a colorist will come in and basically bring in a lot of the vibrancies, the saturation, and help develop more of that color palette that we get to see these images through, and that ultimately helps convey even more mood and tone throughout pieces.
And with the editing, like what's kind of your measure of like what makes a good edit?
I think it's different for every film. You're trying to figure out the pace and tone of every film. You're trying to understand where the important beats to breathe and settle are in a film. And, that's so different in whatever type of genre you're working in. Some films, I think like ours is kind of has a mixed bag of genres. So understanding of how does a thriller typically cut versus how does a family drama typically cut, and needing to balance that. So a good edit is just, there's some really bad edits where like, people close a door in one shot and then it cuts the other shot and you see some of that door still closing, and like that's a bad edit, right? Like on a sort of technical level. But I think ultimately is knowing the story that I'm trying to cut for.
And Alison, kind of to that same effect, as an actor, like when you see like really great acting, what are you kind of flagging, or what are you kind of looking for? Like that's a really good thing they did. Like what's the thing that you notice?
Oh, there's so many. I really appreciate presence, being present as an actor, not trying to just execute a plan or come in with a predetermined way of doing the scene and then muscling that into happening. I think it's really important as an actor to breathe and react to everything that's happening in the scene. And you can do the same scene 5 different ways and tell a different story every time. And just being open enough and relaxed enough to be able to receive that as an actor. I think a big pitfall that I try to avoid myself is just having, because obviously as the actor, you have to intellectually know the skeleton of the scene and the story that you're telling, but you don't necessarily need to know how you're going to react to information that you're receiving in the scene. So much of it comes down to just breathing and relaxation and prep before you get there, before the day, and then sitting in the scene and kind of just forgetting all the prep and being open to whatever happens.
We do have a What's in the Box segment. And in this segment, we have people put movies into the box. These would be movies that, oh, wow, that movie's really good and no one talks about it, and I wish they would. What's a movie that each of you would like to put into the box?
Boy.
Really good.
There's, I don't know, this is the one that just came to me, but there's a Japanese movie called Sweet Bean, female director. I can't remember her name. It's just such a lovely Japanese sweet movie. It's about this guy who's working at a sweet bean shop. It's like kind of a pastry that you can get in Japan that has like a sweet bean spread, and this relationship he develops with this old woman who wants to work there. And it's very sweet.
It looks like it was directed by Naomi Kawase.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's her name.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows this movie, but the first one that came to mind was Milo and Otis. I feel like we need to talk about that one way more and bring it back.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that pick at all. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw Milo and Otis.
I know. See, that's the problem. We need to watch it like annually, at least.
Cool. Well, Alison, James, thanks for joining me. The Mental State is on all TVOD and digital platforms on December 19th. And I really hope a lot of people watch this. And to what I mentioned earlier, it brings up a bunch of problems with mental issues, that getting help. And I think that's really important and not easy for everyone. And I cannot tell you how excited I was to see that you included that into the movie.
Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate everything you brought to the conversation today. It was really helpful. And I love that What's in the Box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Thank you.